I just got back from New York City, and today I'm showing you how I collect inspiration in the streets and turn it into collage art back in my studio. From ripping torn posters off walls and shooting hundreds of photos, to art supply shopping and visiting museums, it's all part of the process. I'm Drew Steinberger, and welcome to my channel. There's nothing quite like arriving in New York. It's hard to beat that skyline, especially from a plane. And even though I've been there more times than I can count, the buzz never gets old. The moment you step into the chaos, the honking cabs, overheard conversations, crosswalks packed with people, it pulls you straight into its rhythm. The city doesn't wait for you, it doesn't ease you in. It's chaotic and amazing. After dropping my bags at the hotel, I head straight out. It's time to dive in, soak it all up, and do some shopping. Before I start gathering inspiration, I always make a few stops. It's New York, and I'm definitely going to do some shopping. Up first is Soho Art Materials. This is a great local shop that has a really great sketchbook selection. Next, I hit up Blick. This is a US brand that I don't have where I live, so I always check it out when I'm in New York. It has pretty much everything you need. Flying to New York prevents me from buying any kinds of liquids like paints, etc. So I have to limit myself to sketchbooks, pens, and other airplane-approved items. After that, I check out some stationery shops, like this one called Goods for the Study. I'm not really a stationery or pen kind of guy, but I do like browsing the journals and unusual office supplies and other odds and ends you can find in places like these. I love coffee, so I stopped for a break and to rest for a bit. By the way, I use My Maps, which is part of Google Maps, to save all the places I'd like to visit and then plot my route. This includes shopping, coffee places, restaurants, museums, etc. I update my map through the year, so whenever I find a place I want to check out, I add it to the map so it's logged for my next visit. Other places I like to go are bookshops. Remember those? Strand Books is a great place near Union Square, and they have a large art section. I also like wandering the neighborhoods and heading into any shop that might catch my attention, like this cool vintage kitchen-y shop. You never know where you might find some inspiration. After shopping, I hop on the subway to cross town for a change of pace. I'm heading to the Whitney. I don't always visit art museums with the goal of deep art analysis, but more to recharge, to take in color, composition, and scale. Of course, I like seeing the well-known art, like these paintings by Hopper or this boxer image by Bellows. But I really love discovering new artists, like these amazing colorful paintings by Maya Resnich. As evening rolls in, I make my way back to the hotel, change, and head out again. Dinner, the skyline at night, and live jazz. I know jazz isn't everyone's favorite, but I've learned to love it. I mostly listen to jazz in the studio, and I've only just started going in person, and New York is a great place to see it. Even when I'm not making art, I'm filling up the well. The next day, I head out and start collecting. Sometimes I'll walk for miles, collecting torn posters, collecting photos of anything that catches my eye, peeling paint, rust, shadows on the sidewalk. All those things you think of when you think of urban landscapes. My phone stays out the whole time, snapping thousands of images. These bits and fragments become part of my collage language back in the studio. I'm drawn to torn posters, graffiti and street art, shadows against the pavement, urban grunge, old infrastructure, rust and decay, subway signage, anything and everything. It overwhelms me in the best way. There really is no place like New York. I'm back in the studio and I'm ready to use the inspiration from my trip to New York. So I'm going to make a mixed media collage in my sketchbook. I'm going to use some of the torn posters I found, and I'm also grabbing some of my other miscellaneous collage papers. I like this magazine transfer I made using a gel plate. I like the grungy urban feel I can get from using gel plates. I also grabbed some pages from my Stendig wall calendar, which, by the way, was designed by the same designer who designed the New York subway signage. I've also taken my photos from the trip and printed them using my inkjet printer onto regular copy paper, and also onto other kinds of paper. Some of these were failed gel plate experiments that I just printed over top of. I've also attached tissue paper onto cardstock and printed on that. It's pretty easy, just attach with low adhesive tape and send it through your printer. I really like printing on tissue because once glued down, the tissue mostly disappears. Let me know in the comments if you'd like a video on how to do this. I grabbed my sketchbook and then grabbed some tools to prep the page. Since I'm using wet media, I go ahead and tape off the edges of the page. I don't always do this, but I just wanted to show you what I do in case you wondered. If I was just doing a collage, I wouldn't use the tape. Next, I just start marking up the page. This is a non-water soluble graphite pencil. I don't know, I'm just making it up as I go. Then I grab some oil pastels and crayons to add some color. Not much of this will show in the final piece, so I'm not really worried about how it looks right now. I grab my acrylic inks and my color shaper and just get some color down on the page. Again, this is just a way to start the collage and make sure I'm not being precious or second guessing anything. It's just a way to loosen up. So now I'm going to grab those printed New York photos and start trimming them out. By the way, that's a rotary cutter used for quilting along with a plastic quilting ruler. I just start trimming these images so I have them to work with. For now, I'm going to cut them in straight edges as I'm still trying to build the base layers. I don't really need them to be any kind of shape or ripped or torn or anything like that. Here I'm moving them around, considering how they relate to each other. In other words, I'm kind of starting to think about composition. I'm also considering what they're covering up. If there's a section below that I like, I'm going to try to not cover it up. Although, that might happen later with the next layers, but maybe not. You'd be surprised how often you can see the early layers in a piece like this. So many layers can sometimes be a bit much visually. For the next layer, I'm going to use heavy body acrylic paint to knock it back a bit. I add the paint and spread it around. Sometimes I take a paper towel or scrap paper and blot it back if I feel I added too much paint. In the next layer, I decide to use a ruler and a felt tip pen and add some vertical and horizontal lines. It might be trite, but I'm just trying to add some gridded lines like the New York street grid. The paint was still wet, so I used some deli paper to protect the ruler and my hand. It's time to add another layer of collage. This time I'm grabbing my regular stack of papers. I'm focusing on any papers that fit the urban theme and/or papers that match the color palette I have going on. I didn't like most of those, so I went back to the New York photos. See that white bit of paper with the 86th Street subway signage? I keep that because I like the space it creates. It kind of creates a small section for your eye to rest. So I glued those papers down and I'm going to start adding more. Tearing papers, who am I right now? Usually I cut my collage papers, but tearing these felt correct for this piece. You can see here I'm trying to trim out this piece to fit within the taped area. I probably should have removed the tape at this point, as you can see how awkward it is dealing with it. Again, I'm going to rip this calendar page. I think it hints at all those torn posters you see when walking through New York. Ugh, I should have removed the tape. Oh well, I guess hindsight is 20/20. Now I'm going to use some of the tissue that I printed on my inkjet printer. To add it to the collage, I'm going to use some water to wet the tissue first. It helps prevent wrinkles. Just remember that the inkjet ink will bleed a bit if you use water and/or matte medium. You can use a fixative, but I don't mess with that. Add the matte medium to the collage and then lay down the tissue and use the brush to smooth it out. I often add more medium over top, but just be aware that the inkjet ink might smudge. Just a note, when I use text in my work, I sometimes turn it upside down so that it's not immediately readable, so it just becomes another visual element. I really like the collage at this point, and I probably should have stopped here, or at least only added a bit more. However, as you'll see, I kept going. One element I tend to add to my collages are these tissues with large marks made using paint markers like Posca pens. To make them, I just draw on top of the tissue using the paint marker. I have to let them dry by hanging them up, or else they'll stick to whatever they're laying on. Again, I wet the tissue, then add the matte medium to the collage, then lay the tissue on top. It was here when I realized in person that I should have removed the tape. I tried using the scissors, then started ripping, then just gave up. I go back to the ripped posters from New York, just trying this and that. I really like this piece with the type. It kind of looks like some of the old subway signage. At this point, I'm trying to find a focal point for the piece. Also, how do these pieces work with and interact with the layers below? You can see me folding the pieces at the tape line. It's just an easy way to know where to trim the pieces. It's finally time to take off this tape. It's always a bit nerve-wracking because I never know if the paper will tear, but usually it doesn't. And most times the tape does its job. It really does keep a clean edge. After looking at the piece for a bit, I decide it needs something lighter. So I grab this tissue with white paint marks and see if it will work. I trim it down and just stick it on with the glue stick. By the way, I sometimes use deli paper and that burnisher to rub down the collage pieces in my work. It's a really great way to be sure they're glued down evenly. And I'm gonna call that finished. A mixed media collage piece inspired by my trip to New York. Actually, it's not finished. For a few days, I kept thinking about the piece and it wasn't sitting right with me. I couldn't leave it alone. So I got my tissue papers back out and decided to add one last layer. I had no idea if this would calm me down about the piece, but I had to try. Instead of using the glue stick for this one, I got out the water and the matte medium and did the whole thing. And by the way, as you can see, it's totally possible to add collage pieces without masking with tape. Sometimes I go over my tissues with my finger and pull away some of the areas that don't have any paint on them. It just gives a bit more depth, as you can see here in these close-ups. Okay, I am now officially calling this finished. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.